Michael, listen, let me ask you, what's happening now in terms of the whole, the sort of perfect storm, if you will, in terms of, you know, the economic situation as it impacts funding, as it impacts ad budgets, and so forth. What's the impact? What do you see happening in terms of, you know, digital media and online video startups or the bigger companies?
I think that media buyers on the buy side of the equation, these people are being presented with so many opportunities right now, from integrations, sponsorships, advertising, all these widget makers. There's almost no way for them to really keep up and carefully consider, all these opportunities. I think that, if some of this underbrush gets cleared out, it'll actually be positive for some of the survivors, when this recession sort of ends.
So, what kinds of companies will succeed? What are sort of the values that they have that will carry them through?
Well, I think exclusive content obviously doesn't hurt. Anything that is content that is unique, it's just not enough, I think, to sort of distribute and not add, any value. I think also the terms. I mean, on what terms do you have this content? Do you have the right to sell advertising against it? If so, what kind, or how much revenue do you keep? All this is going to become, important in deciding, what companies survive, because it's all a matter of, how much revenue they end up, keeping and can, use to run their business.
Now, you covered, a lot of Hollywood back in the day, and big media. How are they making the transition? That's a very general question, but do you have any thoughts about how the Hollywood studios or the big entertainment companies are succeeding in creating new businesses? Not like an acquisition of MySpace, but in terms of what you think are workable, successful.
Well, in a way, these media companies are in the driver's seat because they have the most wanted content, and this is, the content that advertisers most want to be associated with. So that's the upside for them. The downside is they still get a relatively small percentage of their budgets from digital media, and they have to cope with fracturing audiences, which is what's happening on the web. So, if you're Time Warner and your business is scaled right now, serving, X number of millions of people, that's going to be a harder thing to achieve in 2009 than it was in 2007, because people are going to be watching many more outlets and many more, websites, channels. There's just many more. You have to touch many more outlets to reach the same number of people.
In terms of the big stories for next year, I mean, it's hard to say right now. I don't know how you set your goal or your editorial plans. Things kind of develop, but what kind of stories, trends do you anticipate next year?
Well, I think it will be interesting that even in a down year, what kind of share shift moves from television to, say, online video. Because even if it's a very small shift, it'll make a huge difference for a lot of startups and a lot of small but growing businesses. And we'll really get a sense of how these businesses scale and how consumers embrace them. Whether Hulu, for example, truly is like a replacement for television, as some people have suggested. Whether YouTube really is an entertainment medium, or if it's just kind of like an operating system for video, which I think it's mostly used today. So I think a lot of those things will be sorted out in 2009. It'll be great stories. I'm wondering if, I think by the end of 2009, we'll probably see most media companies having done deals with YouTube, even though now, there's still vestiges of, of old battles going on. I think a lot of that will be sorted out next year.
And the importance of user-generated content will be bigger or less, or?
I think it's unclear. I think that most user-generated content is of very little interest to advertisers. I mean, I think there are some very sort of niche and unique marketers that can see a use for user-generated content, but I think for the most part it's pretty experimental at this point. I mean, just like social networks, marketers don't really see what they get out of it, and what they do see is significant, danger to their brands.